I do not understand. Hang on!
A malfunctioning program who wants to live. Why is that?
It's just a feeling.
Fascinating.
Alright, so let us talk about Tron Ares, right? So if you don't mind, I'll just do a preamble and then, you could get in the synopsis of this, right? So to talk about Ares, we have to talk about 1982's Tron, right? We were not born in 82, but for many,
A little before that.
yeah, but for many Gen Xers and for many, sci-fi movie fans who are alive at that time, many will agree that 1982, or at least the summer of 1982, was like the best ever when it came to movies as well. Because I was reminded, actually last night when I was watching a couple of reviews, actually one courtesy of Movie Bob of all people, that Conan the Barbarian, one of my all-time favorite movies, came out around that. Well, I knew it came out in 82. I just didn't know it came out in that summer period, right? But a lot of classics came out, whether it's like E.T. and Star Trek 2, The Wrath of Khan, and Tron came out, right? But here's the thing about Tron, right? It's only like when you, like for me, like it's only like when you learn more about like pop culture and whatnot, right? That you realize that, Tron was a flop. Like it was a commercial flop, right?
So, yeah, how I feel about Tron is that Tron is like the anti-Avatar. Have all this cultural, like, influence and think like a lot of stuff comes from Tron. Like concepts, a lot of stuff comes from Tron. Like Tron was doing stuff even before like cyberpunk novel people was doing these ideas.
Yeah.
Trump and then but it didn't make money.
That's the thing.
No money whatsoever.
Exactly.
Make no money. They kind of just lay die like die in a ditch and they move on. And then how much years pass after? Like 27 years or whatever. 2010 is what? From 1982. Yeah, like what? 30. How old I was when Trons came out? Like
that would be 28 years, right? Like 28 years past.
28 years,
between
yeah.
films,
A lot
right?
of time.
Yeah.
So it's like,
Hmm.
yeah. And so they just, and then it kind of, like as I say, it kind of shocking that they didn't think about a good sequel. Like, so I like Legacy enough, but it isn't that strong of a movie. And like, wow, that is what they come up with after all that time. But like, to me, it was just like with Avatar. It's just a kind of a glorified tech demo. That is the idea. Kind of a tech demo. It's designed to like sell out this technology, very influential technology. Like they had to do a lot of interesting stuff. A lot of stuff come from this. You mentioned Pixar. Like a lot of Pixar should come from this. All of that. 3D technology come from this, and then they pull it off and they make it work. And then, but the story is not there. It was never there. Like it was just a kind of interesting story, but it was kind of slow and boring. Most times it's like, oh, it's just a glorified tech demo. That's it. And then it influenced all the shit culturally and in the industry. And then that's it. Like that's what you think about it. It's just you just think it as Tron and then have all these culture about digital freedom and all this kind of stuff, right? That's it.
Yeah.
And, as I say, I like Legacy, and Legacy is a solid enough story. It had a kind of interesting sci-fi idea in there, with the whole ISO, what the ISOs are and what they're about and what I mean, and then just a banger soundtrack from Daft Punk, absolute banger. That was
Oh
kind of holding up the
boy,
movie
and
a
it
bit.
still holds up, eh? But we'll talk about that in a
Yeah.
bit. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's it. That's how I feel about the Tron franchise. I have nothing else to say other than how influential it is. Like, go ahead.
Well, I like that you just sort of like butted to see that because what you were saying was pretty much what I was going to come to as far as conclusion goes, right? But I mean, like, all right. So just talking quickly, right? So Tron, I think I saw it when it was on G4, right? Back in the days when G4 actually used to, because G4 at the time was looking for content. Historically, there's oh gosh, I forgot the YouTuber who did it. He did the rise and fall of G4, fantastic video. I think is I'm forgetting the name of the creator, but yeah, it's a fantastic video.
Yeah.
And yeah, there was a period where G4 was scrunting for content and they would just show
Right.
these 80s movies, right? So yeah, I think I
Yeah.
saw Tron there. It's either there or sci-fi,
Right.
right? But I saw it after the fact.
Oh, yeah, I saw it. I remember just seeing it on Cinemax or whatever. Like it's
Okay.
like, oh, Trump, and I saw this in the '90s. Like I saw it,
Oh, okay.
you know,
I,
right. I saw it right when I get cable, like around that time. Like, oh, Tron, okay, I watched this for the first time,
yeah.
and it's like, ah, cool. Yeah, this was in a slow period for Disney, right? Remember, there's one. So Disney's always like when Disney starving for content, they always get to Tron as well. Like it's
That's
1982,
true.
so like
That's
Disney
true.
is a low point for Disney. Like this, I think when it come out around that time, Black Cauldron or Sword of the Stone or something like that. Yeah, you make it correct, man.
I think Sword in the Stone came out the same year. No, I think I still haven't
so,
seen
or
that
something
show,
like
believe
that,
it or
right?
not. Yeah, but yeah,
So a lot of people just kind of say that, well, Tron, yeah, sorry, like Tron, they'll only put out Tron if they do have something better or something more popular.
right,
And
yeah,
like if they were to let it grow, it would actually like you could actually get good movies though, because we aren't getting to that, right? So
yeah. So anything with me, right? So alright, so in the 2000s, right? So I think if I'm not mistaken, I think I saw Tron on G4 or maybe before that, right? On another station, right? But for me, it was around that time when I started to watch a lot of cult films, right? I love that term, and I just sort of understood, oh, it's these, misunderstood films that, didn't make a lot of money or people didn't understand it back then, but over the years it grew cult status, and I was drawn to those films, especially 2000s, right? When it came to Tron, even when I actually bought the DVD for it, because I'll never forget there was like this Anime City Comic Con thing that took place, back in the 2000s, and some random sales person had, a copy of it, like actual like original copy of it to this version, and I bought that, and believe it or not, it actually has like a great, even though it's like an hour and a half documentary about how the creators made the film. And yes, you are right. Yes, they were doing like computer animation like in the late 70s, early 80s, right? And yeah, they kind of wanted to make a movie, so they went to Disney. It's like, yeah, can we make a movie? It's like, yeah, and that's really what it was. It was a highlight reel of what they were doing from since the late 70s, right? But admittedly, right, story is neither here nor there, right? It's very straightforward, but it's not as strong as you would expect it to be, right? Especially given its cult status, right? It's very bare bones, very straightforward. Guy goes into game and weird stuff, and you have to get back to the real world, all that kind of stuff, right? But for me, even though I don't love Tron, I understand and I respect its influence. I mean, for God's sake, if it wasn't for that, you wouldn't have the Matrix. I just say it like that. Matrix borrows from it, right? But what it did in terms of early computer animation, I have to say this too, live action and animation, I think that it is groundbreaking in my opinion, right? Because I think this is the first time we ever had, just sort of like a subtle fusion of computer generated imagery in a live action film as well, right? And that's how they pull it off. I thought was well done, right? Yes, you can look at the graphics and be like, oh, this looks so dated and pixely and blah blah blah, right? But yes, it is very influential, and as you mentioned, Pixar. Yes, believe it or not, John Lasseter, sorry, he didn't work on the film, but he was working in Disney at the time, right? Yeah, he saw like he would see dailies, if you will, of it, and he was like, oh, okay, like we could do CG, and yeah, literally, if it wasn't for Tron, we wouldn't have Toy Story. So yes, the influence of that show still remains, right? And yes,
no, yeah,
I know
it's just and it's just like it's just such a product at the time. I think Wendy Carlos did the music for it, so she's a big
yes.
influence, like technopunk person, electronic kind of person. Like okay, all of that. They're like
And
it's really a product. It's like
and the mere fact that Wendy did it right after The Shining is kind of interesting too, because it's that sort of like, well, even though The Shining is very dark synth music, this one is kind of light and heartfelt. That's the best way I could sum it up, right? But yeah, so I could understand why Disney loved Tron, right? But it's kind of amazing though that this one film that like is flat out experimental when you think about it, right? Just resonate, it resonated with so much people in the 80s that people will go back to it and sing its praises or whatnot, right? But yes, as you could tell, I recap both films, the first two, so yeah, I can understand its influence, right? But I don't think anybody expected Tron Legacy when it dropped in 2010. Even though in the documentary, which was made in the early 2000s, by the way, I think it's in 2002 when it was made. Yes, even the director wanted to do a sequel, which he called Tron 2.0. I don't think that what he had in mind in that, with that concept with Tron 2.0 even it was even translated into Tron Legacy. I feel like there was a lot of cooks and they just came up with their own shit, right? That's what it is, right?
No, right. So, yeah. The Tron Legacy stuff come after the fact. I knew Tron was coming because I remember either the Comic Con that year or the year before, they had a kind of test footage kind of thing that was meant to be kind of looking closer to the original Tron and feel more digital. But then the final product wasn't like that. But like it did its own thing and had its own look. I forget, it's the same guy who did thing with Tom Cruise.
I was surprised when I saw that name. Yes, the guy who did Top Gun Maverick and F1. I was like, you did this?
Yeah.
What? Like I did not even know that. I didn't. Yeah,
he's like a former architect and thing. So you have clear conceits of vision to apply to a look now.
Yeah.
And so is that. And so it make it work as its own thing.
Yeah.
As it was now. And I don't love Tron Legacy, but I like it enough. Like it clearly had a good look and a good vision and aesthetic. And as I say, if it wasn't for that Daft Punk soundtrack, which is like complete banger after banger, so it's that, right? And it just like come together as a solid sequel. And I thought, all right, well now the legacy, the franchise is gonna have some momentum. And then Disney bought Star Wars. So that was the end of that. Right, that was it.
Well, yeah, that too, and then the fact that the movie underperformed at the box office, right? But
but like Disney would have probably fight up if they didn't have to buy Star Wars. Like you make some real money here.
Right.
They didn't have anything. But right before, around that time, they didn't have anything. They just bought Marvel,
True.
And then after that, it's like, all right, what we gonna do other than that? Like, no, we need something, another big thing, and then they get the other big thing, which kind of shocked everybody. But that was big news at the time, right?
Yeah, so, it was. And then the Force Awakens happened in 2015, and the rest is history, right? But just to talk quickly about Tron Legacy because we have to get into Ares, right? But sorry, folks, you really can't talk about Ares without talking about Tron as is, right? Yeah. When that teaser trailer dropped, I was excited, especially when I heard the music fit, right? So I saw it twice in cinema, twice in Caribbean Cinemas 8, right? At the time, I enjoyed it, right? And it's a show that, unlike compared to the other film, I would go back to during the 2010s, right? Like I just watched it a few more times, right? And then like I just didn't bother because I felt like it was just sort of ingrained in my head by then, right? So yes, while I do appreciate the attempt at trying to add lore and story into it, though, it's still Tron. And unfortunately, Tron is just one of those properties where, all right, you could try to add story to it, but you'll just make it more convoluted. But at the same time, it's not trying to be this mindless, shut your brain off kind of movie, right? Like, you get what it is. It's just really about human beings in a digital world, i.e. a video game world. That's what the first movie was. And this one tried to do, well, pretty much did it. But it added story to it, and, for the most part, it works. Some of it works. Others is like, all right, you put in way too much effort into this trip because, they went back to, like, Kevin Flynn's character, who's played by Jeff Bridges. They actually take the one program that he made that was introduced in the old film Clue, and they make him to the villain. Right. And yes, and the deep fake stuff. They do typically,
they do typically AI thing.
Yeah,
AI stuff at the time.
Like even like because we didn't see much deep fake, right? Because we didn't see much of it. I was like, all right, well, eventually they will improve on it, right? But yeah, when you watch that over, boy, it's like, oof, like it's not like it looked terrible, eh? It's just that there's so much of it in the show, like the
problem.
They don't hide it. That's the problem.
But the problem is that they use it poorly because you see, if it was just for Clue in the Tron world, you could have let it slide because it's a digital world anyway.
Agreed. But they use it early on with Kevin, but I was like, why, boy?
Yeah, the flashback.
Yeah.
They use it in the flashback and they overuse it in the flashback. Like, if it is, again, it's kind of like with Grand Moff Tarkin or Leia or whatever it was. Like, just put the character in shadow, a little reflection, a little something now. Like, chill out with that now. Like, all it is overdo it. Because in the case of Clue, you were seeing Clue all the time, but that's fine because, again, in the digital world. But, like, it was, I thought it was kind of poorly used. So I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, agreed. So and then with Tron, they make him evil. So he have a new
Well, right. He
yeah.
get corrupted by Clue.
Yeah, he got corrupted by Clue. It's like all these things are like so I'll put it like this, right? Because we have to get the ears, right? At the time, I felt like Tron Legacy, ironically, was trying to, like, going back to 82, right? It was trying to do a Blade Runner like version of the original
Right.
film, right? Where it's
Right.
darker, more dystopian inspired and stuff like that, right? I thought, like, just visually, that kind of aesthetic works, right? But I could imagine back then, right? Even though I don't remember much reviews of that film when it came out in 2010. I can imagine Die Hard fans probably watched that. I was like, nah, this is not for me because in not capturing that childish energy that I had when I saw it. But no, it's not that. It's for a new audience. That's why I felt that the visual aesthetic work. It still works. It still blows my mind just how they incorporate the visuals. I love how they incorporate the black and white sort of photography that they use in the old film. I like how they use that with the silvery look of the film. Just from a visual aspect, I think it works, right?
So if you look at the I remember when they had the Comic Con like kind of demo look kind of feel for it. It was different. It looked different. And I thought the film would have been closer to that. I personally would have preferred that, to be honest. But I understand why, from a production standpoint, where they went with the direction they went with in the final film, and it still looked good. It's still great.
Yeah.
I think those light suits. I think like every one of those suits was like 60 grand for one or something like that. Something insane like that. And like it was like the solid production value. As it is done. And then the big I don't know. I again they could have fleshed it a little better, but like I felt the core sci-fi conceit that was established in this, which is the ISOs and what they are.
Yes.
Right, I don't know. That I thought was a really cool idea.
Yeah, but they didn't delve into it too much, though. Did I say? They just sort of and for me, like one issue I had with those ISO thing, and just how they did world building in Tron Legacy, just sort of acted as, oh well, it just existed, it just came to be because it just came to be, and they not care no more because Clue wiped them out. It's just so like bland, like no, like. Give me more detail, please. Like you could do that,
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because it's a kind of like a digital abiogenesis kind of idea. Like, okay, that is interesting, like science evolution stuff you could play with, maybe, right? Life from non-life. You could do some interesting stuff in the digital world, and that's a cool idea. But like, you had to do something with it. And then, well, Cora is one, and then like Olivia Wilde, she just plays Manny Pixic Dream Girl, but action girl at the same time. Yeah. And she had a completely flat character, in my opinion. Like, I had to do something with that.
Yeah.
That kind of character is a really dated character now.
All I'll say is that I like to look at that in the film.
Yeah, exactly. That's the whole point.
Sorry.
She's a classic grown-up sexy character, right? Like, and it's like, they could do more with that. But yeah, whatever. It's the product at the time. It's fine.
Yeah. One more thing before we officially jump into eras, right? But yeah, that Daft Punk soundtrack still works. There were songs that were burnt into my memory when I first heard them, and I'll just close this, right? That light cycle scene, the first 2 times I saw it at cinema, the couple of times I saw it home, and when I watch it in preparation for this, still fucking slaps though. Especially that music. Boy, I get chills every time I hear that music. Every time I see that do 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 do, and especially when it builds, it's just how they do that glitchy synth pop music. Boy, that is perfection.
Yeah.
Like if there's one scene to take, you could talk about the show being style over substance, and I'm sorry to say that. Yeah, even the first film was style over substance, right? But that one scene, though, that light cycle scene, is one of the greatest things I've seen theatrically, film-wise, in the 2010s, bar none, right? But yeah, you could see what you had to say, and then you move into eras. Yeah.
Yeah, that Daft Punk soundtrack is like excellent, especially end titles. Like the end titles, excellent. I mean, they make it work. And it's just a solid thing. As I said, they could do more with the story. It's fine. But I felt it had potential to do something interesting, like Clue is his son in the digital world, but like the biological son, he abandoned one son for the other. You could get into all of that, and they didn't really do enough of that, I felt. But that's some good dialogue. I don't know. It could get punch up, whatever. And then, it ends. And I really thought, it ends on a kind of interesting, open-ended kind of cliffhanger, because the girl who is a direct product of the digital world can exist in the real world. It's like, all right, well, that means something, like from a material standpoint. You could do a lot of stuff. Remember, it had a whole part where he was waxing philosophical about, well, if these people exist, that means we could solve a bunch of problems. And all this end of medicine, and we could go into the future, and all this stuff for humanity, and well, it's proven true at the end because she could exist outside. And like, all right, well, what are you gonna do there?
Now, if you could just mention one last thing about Tron Legacy, then we can move forward. Sorry, folks, for the long wait, right? But yeah, that ending with with Sam on the bike with Cora, that is literally a version, their take on one of the alternate endings of Blade Runner Dread, where it was Harrison Ford and Sean Young's characters driving off on this road into this forest, and the whole idea is that they're gonna escape the city and they're gonna make their own way through life. But the whole idea is that how they're gonna survive now, because is a human in love with a replicant, is that kind of vibe now. So that's why I said, like, Tron Legacy was trying to be like Blade Runner, is trying to take those kind of existential themes and translate it into that show. But in particular, that ending, and I'm saying this because a lot of people didn't really like talk about it or pick it up. Yeah.
Right.
That was one of the alternate endings of Blade Runner. But if you know your Blade Runner history, they took it out because they felt, it wasn't as ambiguous as an end, to just sort of leave it at the point that we knew it from with the final cut. That's all I'll say. But yeah, I mean, I thought that the ending of Tron Legacy, it left it left things open. Like, okay, we could possibly get another Tron film. And it's so funny that we had to wait 15 years for Ares now, just to jump into Ares. When that first trailer dropped, I was like, wait, is he still doing this? Okay. And I will not lie. Before you do the synopsis, right? First trailer, I was blown away though. Just them visuals, and but the sell for me though was not Jared Leto, haha, but it was the idea of like Tron, well, let's just say, tech from the grid, right? Showing up in the real world, which it's sort of like a reverse take on what the first film was about. It's like, all right, they're trying some new. But we saw it, but to me, it's a natural like fallout from the second film, because if she could come out, that means everybody could come, anything could come out. Yeah.
So as I say, you make a comparison to Blade Runner. Well, this movie is basically Soldier, right? Which is in the Blade Runner universe.
Soldier, here's the thing. Forgive me, I have not seen Soldier in a hot minute. I don't remember a lick of it. I only thing I remember is that Kurt Russell is in it. So please, I am actually intrigued. You need to explain this comparison to me though.
Well, Soldier is in the Blade Runner universe. It's the same universe. Those people they keep talking about is those guys.
So right, the replicants who work off
he's a replicant.
Right, duh.
He's a replicant. Right. Same thing. So it's like, and then he's a soldier who turned good. He's a soldier.
Right. I didn't pick up on that though. That's very that's very interesting, man. Yeah. But but that's last point about Ares being a thing, right? But so it looked good, especially with the use of red and all that stuff. I was like, okay, like we doing this. In my head, I wasn't really thinking that we would ever get like a follow-up from Legacy. It's like, all right, we getting this, right? And then, okay, 9 Inch Nails doing the soundtrack. Okay.
Right. And they, oh my God, they real carry this movie for me, yeah?
Boy, no lie, right? I mean, Trent Reznor, Atticus Ross. I mean, we always fucked with y'all, but y'all did all the damn thing on this movie, boy. Y'all came true to the point that two things: one, they executive produced this shit, and also they made cameos in this. But I was like, wow, but y'all love this, but y'all really love this, right? But yes, now we could finally get into Ares. Now, sorry for the long wait, but Ricardo, what was Ares about? And you could give general thoughts on Ares. And yes, folks, we will keep things spoiler free, because we don't want to get into spoilers. But yeah, Ricardo, take it away. So, Ares.
Yes, so in the future, they basically carry the technology to its end. So Encom, this is the son of Peaky Blinders. Oh gosh, what's the character name?
It's Cillian Murphy's son. I was trying to figure out, because they say he's the grandson of the original guy, David Warner, who was in the first film. But I was trying to remember. But
Cillian Murphy wasn't. Cillian Murphy wasn't.
Yeah, he was in Tron Legacy, but I was trying to remember. So, okay, so the point I get at, sorry to interrupt, is that I was wondering if this new guy who is played by Peters, I didn't expect he to be in the
Right.
show. Yeah, I didn't know that. I
Right.
wasn't sure if he was Killian Murphy's son or if he was just
Right. He's
a
supposed to
relative
be.
of David Warner's character. I don't know.
Right. He's supposed to be right. Cillian Murphy is David Warner's son, and he's supposed to be his son. And if I remember correctly, no, he's not his son. He's his nephew.
Oh, okay.
Because what's her name? Gillian Anderson is the sister. Is his sister.
Yeah.
So that's how it goes.
McGill, Scully in this show, like, what? You're this show?
Right. So that's what it is. I think it's his same grandfather, but Cillian Murphy's his uncle, I think, if I remember correctly. Well, I didn't follow the details. It kind of don't matter. And so he building his new version of master computer, which is a soldier that is designed to invade other programs, kind of. But then they make him too smart, so he become all existential. And then they have a kind of corporate espionage back and forth about technology. And I thought this movie was just woefully naive in terms of like, oh, this is what corporations like. Oh, it have a good corporation and a bad corporation, which is kind of dumb bullshit. That don't make any sense.
I
Well, moving
know,
on.
right?
Right.
When that in
So
the 80s, folks, come on, man. Like,
Yeah, but
Jesus
you have a
Christ.
girl now. She of the good corporation with the blue corporation, and her whole thing is that I forget the name of the company, but her whole thing is that well, she's gonna make food and feed everybody, and then we the bad guys on the other side, them only making weapons to kill people, so them bad, we good. And like, they could make this a little more nuanced. Like, come on, guys, like they can make this smarter. Anyway,
We're not in the
so
80s,
that's
folks. Come on.
yeah. So that's pretty much, the entire conflict. It's just that, and then Jared Leto's character slowly but surely learning about the world and becoming quote unquote more human, and then we get some Terminator 2 shenanigans or Terminator 3, you could say. Because we get a little road trip eventually, and then he comes out to the world to hunt down the person, but then he had to turn around and be a friend. So it's a little Terminator 2, little Terminator 3, a little bit of that, but then and then they had to learn to be human, but then and then he gets reinstalled and comes out blue, and that's pretty much it. And I just thought this whole thing fell really flat. And here's the thing: I keep telling people, like it has make me feel it. Like when I tell you that Trent Reznor and them hold up the movie. If we had a version of this movie that you could just turn off your brain, like just turn off the song and just have it be like just the visuals and the music, like an extended music video, that's what it was. This is talk about style over substance, because if it wasn't for Nine Inch Nails, I would have been like, nah, this would have been like, I had a real check out of this completely. And I could not believe how bad this was from a story perspective. Now, I not getting into my bag over Jared Leto. That is your own thing. Like, I'm not getting too mad over him, right? But he is so bad in this, though. Like, I think he's really bad in this. Like, it doesn't work at all. That's how I feel about that. And then, yeah, the story just fall flat. Nine Inch Nails holding it up, and it's happy when I keep telling people I feeling old because this movie making me tired. No. I stay up for the whole of one battle after another. That's a long movie. That had my attention because that's good filmmaking. This was just boring, and it's like they have all these like side people in it, and like, oh, I like Hassan Minaj, but you are woefully unfunny in this. Shockingly unfunny. I like Hassan Minaj, very unfunny in this movie. Terrible. Like, does he get a crap the right film? This is easily the worst of the Tron movies. Like, it worse on Tron Legacy, and I wasn't like super hyped on Tron Legacy. And this was just kind of bad. Like, Jodie Turner-Smith, I like her, kind of, but she, again, fall flat. Holy shit, they could write something better than this. Like, they had 16 years, and like, this is what we get away. It's pretty bad. Like, I thought this was kind of bad. But the style is there. It does look good. The visuals look great. They had that early fight that was like a kind of Dune fight. It looked kind of cool. It feel like something from Dune because that's okay. That's it. The action is kind of okay maybe at parts, but overall really kind of bad. And this is probably gonna make one of the worst of the year for me. Mostly because the story and Jared Leto is kind of bad in this. Like, again, he's one of those guys who I don't understand why you have a career. He probably have some blackmail something going on because he just win one Oscar. And like, good, but like he been messing up for a hot minute. And forget the real world shenanigans with him. Ignore that. Is it like, really, you're gonna give all this effort for here and this way again? Since Joker, I write you off. Since when you do that shitty Joker, I write you off. But this was pretty bad for me. Yeah, go ahead.
As we talk about Jared Leto, right? It's so funny that he was in Blade Runner 2049, which is
right.
still one of my favorite movies of the past
decade. Which I didn't think he was that bad in. Because he was
serviceable. I would say that, yeah.
He was serviceable, but only because of his character. The character was kind of interesting because he was constantly comparing himself to Tyrell. That was kind of interesting. It's like, oh shit, like Tyrell could solve a problem, he can't solve, and Tyrell solved this problem ages ago, and he like struggling to solve it, kind of thing. I like that. That's a cool idea. But you don't need him for that. Like that's not the reason why I like it. However, but yeah,
Yeah.
go ahead.
So here's the thing with me, right?
Yeah, go ahead.
So listen, you calling this one the worst of the year. I will call this a noble failure because I did not hate the show as much as I should have, right? But at the same time, this was a step down from Tron Legacy, and I would admit that. And to me, an example that just a straight up pure indication that this franchise should just pretty much have just stopped at Legacy. Now, I could go on Wikipedia right now and I could look up all the details and history in terms of what went down because apparently they wanted to do a sequel to Legacy for a long while and just things just did not play out, right? I don't know if Sam was really supposed to be in this film because I was actually let down, slight spoiler, that he was not in it as well, right? Same thing with Core as well, right? But yeah, I don't know if this story was like rewritten or just just like it just really feels like there was an original story that was supposed to follow from what happened at the end of Legacy, and somebody just came and said, okay, we're not doing this again because this person dropped out or this writer or this director dropped out, whatever it is, and we're just gonna do some brand new. Now here's the thing, what I will give this show credit for, admittedly, no bullshit, is that at least it had the bravery to try something new. Going back to what as I said about, how I was excited by, by how they were, the whole idea of tech from the grid coming into the real world. We never really saw that before, right? We could be...
That's not that new because it's implied. It was implied by the end of the second film, so I knew this is where they was going with it.
Yes,
like this is very predictable as to where it was going with. In my opinion, it was very predictable. Like it was like, oh, they're going to have like one side going to try to be manipulate everything, and then the other side going to be try to be all Star Trekky and try to do that with it. Like that's what. And look, that's an interesting like economic argument you can make, maybe, right? But they didn't do that. They just like go military and. None of it was working. None of it was working. Yeah, go ahead.
All right, so let's get to the good. Just to get to the good out of the way, right? The two good, the two most obvious things. These are the things that even if somebody puts out a review saying why is the worst show the year so far, they have to admit, whoever it is, that yes, visually this shit looks amazing. I did not see it in IMAX, but there were moments where I was like, I wish I saw that in IMAX. Like the fight scene involving the Reds versus the Blues, as all I was saying, was pointing. That looked real cool. I was like, I wish I saw that in IMAX, right? The stuff with the I forgot what you call the large flying ships. I forget what you call them. That the revealers or the repeaters.
I forget
what it is. I forget. Yeah. That looked cool as well. I love the red lights and all that kind of stuff. That should look cool. Right? And Nine Inch Nails' soundtrack. Admittedly, it don't stick out. It didn't stick in my brain as much as in Daft Punk one.
Not as great as Daft Punk, but still good.
But still good. Like when I heard the Daft Punk soundtrack for the first time, that shit stuck in my head. And the only song I knew going into it was the Light Cycle song, because that was all over the marketing for that film, right? But yeah, this one, I do appreciate the fact that they were pulling from what Daft Punk was doing, but they were doing their own thing as well. I like that they incorporate two songs with vocals, so you actually hear two songs literally, and not just instrumental shit. So I appreciate that, you know what I mean? And it's dark and it's glitchy, but that's what you expect anyway. But it works, right? It works in the service of the show itself, right? But that being said, though, character-wise, it was just one-dimensional characters, unfortunately. Like, listen, I really like Greta Lee. She was great in past lives. I didn't expect her to be in the studio, but she was there and she was funny in that. She was there and she looked nice and whatnot. But that the show just desperately was trying to find things for her to do, especially in the climax. I was like, all right, like, I kind of see what she was trying to do there, but it really feel like the show just wanted her to do something. I was like, because it just kind of goes against character. Like, why would you do that, right? Why would you put yourself at risk like that, right? That's also what was pointing. But it's like, okay, all right. And as for the elephant in the room, sorry, Jared Leto, he was what he was. You know, they do the whole Terminator thing where it's a artificial being learning about humanity. But I will say this, just to compliment the guy, he kind of nailed the sort of deadpan delivery. That's the way how he speaks or whatnot. He nailed that. But there were moments where I was like, okay, like he trying to articulate himself. There's this one moment that unfortunately kind of bordered on cringe, unfortunately, where he was talking to Jeff Bridges. I'll talk about he in a bit, right? About why he appreciate a 80s rock band over Mozart. I like how he was trying to articulate it. I was like, but there was no point to all this. Like, I thought that he was building to something real philosophical, like why, an artificial being like he would appreciate 80s music as opposed to Mozart, which is supposed to be universally recognized as like, music that you're supposed to love, right? Because, humans, do that, right? And yet he could not come up to a proper conclusion. It's like, wait, so the reason that you couldn't come up with a conclusion that you finally understand about human emotions, they get the fuck out of here with that shit, Jen. You know what I mean? Like, it was going to a punchline, you just drop it. Like, what?
Yeah, no, they're trying to do because it's really coming across like they're trying to do the Roy Batty thing, but also, the whole Dita Palunquio thing, and none of it like tying together. And because it's so dated as a concept, to me at least, is like, again, none of like it's not giving me anything to think about or anything like that. None of this was working for me. And
Yeah,
I feel this guy who playing another guy. There's a show right now that nailing this, Murderbot. Like, Murderbot
I've
exists
been
right now.
hearing a lot of great things about that show.
And Murderbot actually cooking with that concept and doing that so much better and so much better thought out. It's like, oh, it's chalk and cheese, Jared.
Yeah,
It wasn't working at all.
yeah, but as far as I could praise the, okay, this is my approach, this is my robotic approach to my character. Yeah, sorry, but Jared Leto was just so bland in this shit. Like, even when he's supposed to be stern and menacing at points, or authoritative, when he takes action and he has to do the right thing, yeah, it just came out as flat in my opinion, right? But for me, what really brought this show down for me, Tread, is how it just felt disconnected from the first two films, right? And yet the show tried to find ways to connect them, and I just felt like it didn't work at all, right? So, slight spoiler, right? The show actually does a very effective callback to the first film, right? In the sense of how it looks like they literally recreate the look of the grid for the first film. That caught me completely by surprise, right? And I was expecting something very promising out of this, but it just was a scene that doesn't last long. But
personally, I'm not fan of that shit.
Okay,
because
you was not fan.
Is this franchise?
Yeah,
Is this franchise? I get it. Like,
yeah.
well,
listen, I could have just dismiss it as remember berries, right? But I was like, but no, this actually kind of work, right? But here's the thing, is because of the promise that was given, right? So I have to spoil this, guys. This is the moment where Jeff Bridges comes into the story, and this is where I felt was one of the biggest plot holes in the movie, right? Because without spoiling what happened in the end of Tron Legacy, we wasn't sure what happened to Kevin in that world, in that grid, right? But what they do here is that, no, this is an older grid, but why is Kevin here? They never explain that. That's the thing.
I couldn't follow it as the same character.
I was lost by this. And the show could have actually explained, but you see, this would require the show to go back to Legacy and justify it. They could explain, why this older version of Kevin exists in this older grid. They never do that. So while I was watching the scene, I was wondering if it was the same Kevin from Legacy or not. They treated it as if it's two different entities, But like, how? And then it's like, when I was thinking about it on my way back home and I stop and I think about this, I was like, are this serious? So here, right? Still in kind of like minor spoiler territory, right? Because you telling me now that this older grid, right, that exists, right? And I'm not even going to say how it came to be, but it's a little thing that happened, a little remember Mary's moment, right? But whatever. You're telling me that in this older grid, I am treating this as the grid that we saw in the first one, right? Where Kevin was not even in. Kevin went into the grid that we saw in Legacy and rebuilt it with Clue and Tron and blah, blah, all that kind of stuff, right? But now you're telling me this older grid from the first film have an older version of Kevin? but it's not the
I don't-
same Kevin from Legacy. So how is that even possible, right? The show couldn't even stop to kind of give us some bullshit to
They didn't
kind of
care.
justify that,
What
right?
did it-
But that
But the thing is, they make virtually no mention of Sama or Korra in this.
exactly
either, so it's
just up until the
I like-
end.
But they just kind of treat this as like a sequel to the first movie, no? Not so much.
Exactly,
like-
which made no
Yeah.
sense. They could have made up their mind, right? So at the end of the day, because I could go into details about just how big of a plot hole that is, right? This show unfortunately wants to be it's trying to be a sequel to the first film, right? And I do appreciate some of the callbacks to the first film. Even right down to the theme song of the first film comes up in a blink and you miss it moment. It's like, all right, I like that. That's clever, right? But it also wants to be a sequel to Tron Legacy. What I felt this show could have done was literally be a continuation of both films, but it just acts as if Tron Legacy do exist, but it kind of does because they mentioned Sam and thinking, okay, well, we don't see Sam, so all right, well, I guess Tron Legacy do exist in this world. But then in the end, they bring him back. It's like, okay, well, it does, but it doesn't even like feel like a proper like true line though. Like you don't feel the connection from with this film with the other two, and I'm there like wondering why, Dread. So what I feel, as I wrap up here, is that somebody or some people came, probably look at the draft of the sequel, the official sequel to Tron Legacy, do some rewrites, throw away the old thing and say, nah, we ain't doing that, we gotta do this shit, right? But we have to remind people that Legacy exists, so we had to throw a little callback here. But we really want to remind people that Tron is still a thing and is a great film, even if people don't think so. So we're gonna do more of the callbacks to that film than this one. But it's like, but that's what Legacy was doing as well. So why are you treating as if Legacy don't exist? It makes no sense, right? So at the end of the day, this is a weird, like when you really think about it, this is a weird franchise, because it's a show that was like the original film, right? Classic in quotes, right? Cult film, definitely, but it is a show that is style over substance. But you understand why it's so impactful and influential, right? Yes. Legacy did a solid enough job of paying tribute to that, doing its own thing, kind of doing a soft reboot of it while continuing the story. You could argue for days about, not enough substance in it, but again, style over substance, right? But the style absolutely works, right? But I do not understand with this show here why they couldn't just continue on with what was set up in those two films. It wants to do its own thing, but it wants to draw influence from the first two, but then it acts like the second film don't exist. It makes no sense to me. I just don't understand, right? And I was just frustrated by that, right? Even though I was watching the flashy visuals, I was enjoying it, I was enjoying the soundtrack and the action as well, right? But it just had this weird case identity crisis where like it almost wanted to act as if Legacy didn't exist but it wanted to at the same time. So yes, they could have found so much creative ways to continue on the story, but it just sort of want to be its own thing, which makes no sense to me, Dread. And that to me is the biggest disappointment of the film, acting as if two do exist, right? And yet when they released on when they released on home media, it could be the whole trilogy together, right? So I don't know. I don't understand that, right? But yeah, while for me personally, it's not the worst show I see for the year, though, I didn't walk out of it massively disappointed. At the same time, I felt like this could have been the perfect opportunity to continue on the story from Legacy. Sure, you don't have to bring in Sam or Korra, but still bring in the teams. And as I say before, this inclusion of Jeff Bridges in that is such a massive plot hole. Again, you're telling me this is, but
it's a massive plot hole. I don't know if it's necessarily a massive plot hole, but it's more like they just leave something open and they don't answer it. So it's just more like an unanswered question.
All right, I understand.
Because again, it's not the same grid from thing. Because I just think with the gold grid thing is that it's not necessarily connected, but sometimes it is. Like I show it at a throwaway line or two that explain it.
Yeah.
But I didn't get
you see the problem.
It's the same thing.
But the problem, and I'll get to my point here as before I get to reiterate. But the problem is, in the first film, Kevin left that version of the grid, built and come to the Enterprise that it is, and then he left again to rebuild the grid, which is what we saw in Legacy, right?
But it's the same place. We don't know that.
That's the thing, and the show never bothers to explain.
We have no way to know.
And ultimately,
yeah.
And as I wrap up here, right? So for me, I could see Ares becoming a cult classic over time. just like the first two films. I could see that. I honestly could see that. People could
Okay.
just kind of shut their brain off and be like, well, fuck story. I just love the visuals and Nine Inch Nails music, so okay, cool. But
Good.
I could see people going back to this over the years, right? I don't know if I'll be one of those people because I went back to Tron Legacy over the years, and I even in the 2010s, I said that this was I said to myself that was going to be a cult classic. That is a cult classic in the making, right? And I hold on to that
Right.
belief, right? But it is one of those shows that, admittedly, you like. I would say like this, right? Like if for people who go into this completely blind, acting as if the first two films didn't matter, y'all will be lost by the story. This is a show that relies heavily on you remembering on those two films, especially the first one, right? But again, it
Yep.
goes back to the
Yep.
problem that the first film had, where it was all style and not enough substance. And this show here kind of follows along in that same tradition, but they try to add a lot of substance and existential themes, but it's just it just kind of doesn't matter, Dre, because the style kind of trumps the substance all the time, right? And it's just that the substance in this film here, especially in this film, unlike Tron Legacy, because we kind of accuse Legacy the same thing too, but this one you really see it more, boy. The substance just don't really stick. It don't land. It don't work. There's a lot of plot holes and logic holes that that the show could have explained, but they don't even explain. And it just act as if, well, people don't really care about it in the end, because what they come for is just flashy visuals and synth pop music. No, we kind of want to have, at the end of the day, we kind of want to have a reason. There should be a reason why this movie exists. And there's no reason outside to just say, we just want to do another Tron film. So at the
Yes.
moment, I hearing, or at least I seen that this show could be a flop as well. So imagine this, this is a franchise where we've had with each entry underperform at the box office, and yet I still think that over time this show could be a cult classic. I suspect that. I suspect that I call it right now, right? So yeah, I think I ramble on enough for this. This is a noble failure for me. This could have continued on. This show was the opportunity where they could have really like given itself a reason to exist, and yet it doesn't. It just sort of dumps itself down with the visuals and the music and the action, and acts as if the audience wouldn't even care because, oh, it's Tron, man. But like, no, like you fallen up after Legacy, Dread. You and you don't even bother to justify that in any way, in my opinion, right? Outside of just some callbacks to that film and the previous film, right? Nah, man. The writing ultimately is what brings this film down. I would say way more than the acting, because yeah, I mean characters, everybody pretty much is just one note, one dimension, in my opinion. But yeah, the writing is the biggest weakness in this show, and of course the biggest strengths are of course the music and the visuals, right? But yeah, for me, I'll give this a light 2.5. I'll give this actually a light to decent 2.5 out of 5. See it if you want to. You really don't need to see this in IMAX unless you just want to see flashy shit and hear Nine Inch Nails music. You know, if you just really want to get the full experience, then go IMAX. But I went in Cribbin Cinemas, and I mean, I appreciate it for what it was, though. But yeah, this was a massive step down as far as the Tron series go. And yes, again, you could argue it's style over substance. I get that, right? But Legacy at least tried to add substance to it, right? Even though it didn't completely work, right? But this one was a moment where it's like, no, well, here's another moment. You have another opportunity. And yet the creator's like, well, nah, let this be style over substance again. And let me try with substance, but then the substance really worked. Like, you could tell like there was a lot of rewrites that took place, but it was like, nah, man, like try to justify your own existence. I felt like this show couldn't even do that, right? But again, I had to repeat, I do see this film having cult status over time. That doesn't mean that the movie is good, because yes, even shitty films can have cult status, and we've seen this historically, right? So yeah, I guess we'll see. Even though, to be honest, I really don't think we'll have a Tron sequel, boy, because given the length of time between entries. But yeah, I think that this is the end of it. But if there's another one, boy, here's hoping that at least they give us substance that we actually give a shit about, right? And that's all I have to say. But yeah, Ricardo, I talked long enough. But yeah, Ricardo, final thoughts written. Worst in the air. I know you're gonna give it that, but yeah, the floor is yours.
Yeah. I went in with low expectations, and it was below that. Yes, I expected the visuals to be good, but the visuals didn't blow me away. It's just like it's good, it's fine, but it didn't blow me away, so it's fine. And then again, Nine Inch Nails is a step down. Again, not bad, pretty good, soundtrack, but not as it was choke again, not as good as Daft Punk was, or what, 15 years ago. So yeah, I this was a big disappointment. I really thought they would try something because like, all right, they're making a next movie. Do you know they get this green light? But really, just come across like more like Hollywood producers like push this because they're fighting on the project. And I keep hearing things like, oh well, we're making this movie for 9 years, and I'm a big Tron fan. It's like, that's a red flag. When I hear that bullshit, that is almost a red flag. Very, very rarely, somebody who I don't know who claim to be a fan of the franchise just want to say that shit. Right? And that is when I hear that these people in the background and promo materials had to say that. It's like, all right, probably not going to be that good. And it wasn't. It was, but it was much worse than I thought it would have been. And yeah, again, I really, really, really was disappointed in this one. Just as I said, visuals okay and music okay, but like story was just such a mess, and none of this works. And yeah. So for me, like a 4 out of 10. This was a big disappointment. Again, didn't it's a disappointment because I went in with an okay expectation. I was expecting 7 out of 10. It could be about as good as Legacy, and it wasn't. It was like, to me, it's kind of much weaker than Legacy, and I didn't love Legacy all that much. But to be fair, the original Tron was kind of crap, but again, you tolerate it because of the look and the time and what it was trying to do. But now, not so much. Yeah, it as you said, it can justify its existence. It had very little excuse for being this bad. 4 out of 10 doesn't work.
Yeah. And just lastly, before we wrap up here, it's very telling that the sequel that people was dumping on, especially like diehard Tron fans were dumping on back in 2010, turned out to be a better film than this though. Like this, when you look back at it, look, I don't know if you recap if you when last you rewatched Legacy, but I see for the most part it still holds up, like the visuals, the music, action holds up.
Yeah.
It's just story not as strong as it could have been, right? Even with the whole excuse as, oh well, it's not supposed to be about substance anyway, right? But yeah, like compared to Ares, there was a reason, there was a continuation, there was a flow from the first film, and it works, right?
Right.
But yeah, again, this one sort of acts as if the second one didn't matter, and all that really matters is just the first film. Even right down to redoing. This last point I'll make. They even redo the intro of like that moment with the TV screen and the whole news report about Kevin's disappearance. That's literally a repeat of from Legacy, But they just redo it and act as if, well, his son didn't exist, but yeah, Kevin left, and almost again acting as if Legacy didn't happen, right? But I'm just saying, well, why though? Even right now to Greta Lee's character being in the film, I was like, but wait, no, but I thought Sam was running the business. Cause he says that in the end, he's going to run the company. He tells Kevin's friend, well, his digital avatar is Tron, right? I forget the guy's name, right? Bruce Boxlenter, I think that's how you pronounce his name.
Yeah.
Yeah, you literally tell him, man, I run in the business, and just forget about that. Just treat it as, Sam and Cora just still on the run, or they still not dealing with income shit, so okay.
Yeah.
But like, what?
No, they couldn't get back. They couldn't get back the actor. They couldn't get back Olivia Wilde. So
it doesn't matter if they couldn't get the actors back, but don't act as if don't act as if their decisions at the end don't happen. It didn't make sense. So, like, come on, man. But anyway, I think we talked long enough about it. But yeah, I mean, if you want to see it, go see it. But Ricardo thinks that it's not really worth seeing at all. So yeah, I'll leave it up to you guys. And yeah, that's it.